In the spring of 2020, a couple of weeks into lockdown, I saw that some unfortunate ne'er-do-well in Singapore had become the first man in the history of the world to be sentenced to death by Zoom call. And he didn't seem a terribly nice chap, but I felt a bit sorry for him because there seemed something especially pathetic in being condemned to hang via video conferencing. And I wondered whether the judge had bothered getting out the old black cap to direct that the convicted man be taken to the place of execution and there hanged by the neck until you are dead, and may God have mercy upon your soul. Or whether, as with so many other Zoom calls, as we were to learn, the judge was just sitting in his rec room with his pajama bottoms under his robe. And I'm not facing execution or anything, but I have a long-running lawsuit in America, and we had a scheduling conference via Zoom a few months ago, and the judge was sitting there in slacks and an open-necked shirt. And I didn't like to complain because these yank judges can be very vindictive if they take against you, but his slacks, for me, didn't really embody the full majesty of the law. Lockdown has supposedly ended, but normality has not returned, even to areas of life that were generally immune to passing fancies, such as our law courts. On Monday, criminal barristers in England and Wales begin a continuous, uninterrupted strike, which sounds like a comedy sketch with bewigged scabs. Look at them all, the strikers in... Have you ever seen strikers in court dressed? Look at that, they're striking in their... What do they call those collars? Jabots, I think? They're striking in their wigs and jabots. I've never seen that before. It's like so much in the last 2 years I've never seen before. It's like it's part of the general disintegration of all norms in our fragile system. Not just the courts, but also the jails. The number of prison officers has fallen by 15%. Sue Cook, you know from Crime Watch, You and Yours, Children in Need, but her big hits shouldn't obscure the other stuff, like Out of Court, which Sue used to present on the BBC. You never had to contend with a strike by barristers in those days, did you?
I don't think we did, no. I don't think, of all the professions, they were the least likely to go on strike. But I think junior barristers, I have to say, have a pretty tough time of it now.
Well, they make about 12 grand a year.
I've heard of it being as low as that. Yeah. I think 12% earn as much as 30 grand, and I think something like 25% might even go up to 60. But it's a hard life. It's not a social life. I mean, they're dealing with pretty hardcore things, like knife crime and sexual assaults and so on. And because they're juniors, they get all the rubbish thrown at them, so they're very likely to get home from one day in court and be told that they've got to prepare another case so they're up all night preparing the case for tomorrow. They might have to travel 20 miles or so to do that day, and then they're quite likely to get another case to prepare overnight. And if you've got a family and social life to manage, it's not always that bad, but it can be that bad as a junior barrister.
But everybody thinks, Sue, that they do. Oh yeah, that you have it tough when you're starting out, but that's because you're going to wind up a QC with silk and all the rest of it, living the life, and so they're not a group you would... It's not like, train drivers or... I mean, it's hard to have great, huge public sympathy for barristers on
Same with the junior doctors as well, isn't it? The same sort of argument, which has some merit to it, but it is, it is quite tough. I mean, they've got a good settlement now arranged, 15%, which is worth about $7,000 on average a year. But the trouble is, there's a 60,000 plus backlog of cases, and they're not going to allow them to have the pay rise until they've got through the 60,000. So the more they go on strike, the greater the backlog's going to be. So how we solve that one, I don't know.
Do you think it's going to resonate though at a time when we were talking earlier the price cap? I think the highest bid we had now it's up over £8,000 by April next year. For being able to switch your light on. Do you think in that sort of a world people are going to be, we back the barristers?
No, maybe not. But I mean, the problem is that, the courts are now going to be completely snarled up. So I have a horrible suspicion that a lot of criminals are just walking free because they're not they're not getting their trials. You know, the courts can't handle them. Maybe that's why, as Toby was saying, maybe that's why they're all concentrating on thought crime and they're not actually giving people jail sentences or charging people.
You know a lot of that because of your Crime Watch days. And Crime Watch, that kind of a show just depends to a certain extent on the cooperation of it. You certainly had friendly relations with, you know, chief superintendents and other spokespersons on that show. I mean, I don't even know whether you could do a show like that now. Well, I mean, what would you be having the chief constable on to talk about how he's very concerned that misgendering is getting out of control in rural Norfolk? I mean, what kind of crime show would you be doing in the UK?
I don't know. That was more of the out of court programme I did. That would have covered that, I suppose, rather than specific crimes. But yes, I don't know whether you can imagine that at all.